Hey guys, I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, based here in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. Well, like many of you, it looks like we're going to be holed up and landlocked for a while with the outbreak of the coronavirus. So when life hands you lemons, make lemonades, because what better time than now to get caught up in video projects and make some content for my YouTube channel, which of course leads me to this. This is the Sigma 24mm f1.4 Art Series lens from Sony. Now this lens is also available for Canon and Nikon DSLRs, but for Sony users specifically, the only other lens with this focal length and aperture combination is the much more expensive Sony 24mm f1.4 G Master lens, which I'm sure is a bit better than the Sigma, but based on price alone, is the Sony nearly 2 times better? Well, let's find out. Sigma has turned itself into a formidable competitor in the professional lens space for photographers, videographers, and notably hybrid shooters. Ever since they came out with their 35mm f1.4 Art Series lens for Canon and Nikon DSLRs back in November of 2012, Sigma has completely revamped the way it produces, manufactures, and markets their lenses with tremendous success. Now, there are still a lot of naysayers out there who continue to lament about the Sigma of old, but the reality is Sigma has been producing world-class quality optics for quite some time now. The 24 that we are reviewing here today came out in March of 2018, and Sigma has put all the first-party camera companies like Canon, Nikon, and Sony on notice with outstanding optics, great build, and all at value prices. Does the 24mm f1.4 Art continue that tradition? First up is build quality. In living up to the tradition of excellent build in the Art Series line, the 24 doesn't disappoint. It's made out of the all-too-familiar thermally stable composite that we've come to know and love from Sigma. The 24 is built to a very sleek and solid standard, which is typical of the line. Coming in at 1.46 pounds, the Sigma has also continued the tradition of making bricks for lenses. In their quest for the best possible optical quality, Sigma has definitely gone full throttle towards the bigger is better mentality with regard to manufacturing of their lenses. The 24 is more of the same. On the inside, it's a very complicated formula of 15 elements arranged in 11 groups. And included in that formula are 3 FLD, which is fluorite low dispersion elements, and 4 SLD, which is special low dispersion elements, in addition to a super multi-layer coating. They all work in concert to produce sharp, contrasty images with clarity and limited chromatic aberrations, regardless of the focus point or the aperture setting. That sounds pretty convincing. The focus ring is smooth and buttery with a fair amount of resistance. The lens hood is built to a high standard as well. The autofocus manual focus switch clicks into place with authority. The lens mount is made out of metal, and the front filter thread is a very common 77mm. The aperture ranges from f1.4 all the way to f16. And speaking of the aperture, there are 9 rounded aperture blades for very smooth out-of-focus bokeh rendering. Even at 24mm, because it has an f1.4 aperture, nice subject isolation is definitely achievable. It's even more achievable as you get closer to the intended subject. Sigma has outfitted the 24 with their latest hypersonic focus motor, which should give us fast and accurate autofocus. We'll see in the AF section. Now, the downside, Sigma makes no reference to weather sealing, which is kind of a shame, especially for a lens at this price point. And let's be honest, at 1.5 pounds for a prime lens, it's a bit of a beast, so you better get to the gym. But all in, for build, the Sigma gets a very solid 9.5 out of 10. Next up is autofocus speed and accuracy. The latest hypersonic motors from Sigma are really quick, very silent, and very accurate. They're not quite up to the same level speed-wise as a Nikon G lens or a Canon ultrasonic motor lens on DSLRs, but they're certainly not so slow that you risk missing a shot. In my experience, I've found that autofocus is quick and decisive and doesn't hunt all that much when shifting from far-away subjects to up-close ones. But let me just demo the autofocus in stills really quickly here. Set to infinity, we're going to focus on something really close, this tripod. And bam, just like that. Now, one of the cool things is that the minimum focus distance is only 9.84 inches or 25 centimeters, which means there's some value to the 24 as a macro lens. Now let's focus on something far away. And bam, I mean, it's instantaneous, decisive, and accurate. It's not up to the speeds of a Canon ultrasonic like I've been using on my adapted lenses for the Canon EOS R, but it's certainly no slouch, and it's just a little bit slower than best in class. In video, I found the autofocus to be a little bit inconsistent, especially when first acquiring a subject, usually a face. But once it locked on, it generally held the subject in focus, no matter how much I moved around the frame. What I did is I went ahead and I conducted the same test 4 times. And 3 of those 4 times, the autofocus worked perfectly. On one of the tests, the AF and the lens failed to acquire my face at all. Now, for you video shooters who like to use manual focus, one of the cool things, or one of the great things about Sigma, is that these lenses are not fly-by-wire. There's a focus distance meter on here, which means you can mark your focus points in a scene. Now, one thing I do love about Sony cameras is, generally speaking, their cameras play really well with third-party lenses. Something that I can't really say for Canon because, in general, autofocus on a Sony, especially in video, autofocus tracking works almost as flawlessly as a native Sony lens. All in though, AF for stills was fantastic. AF for video worked most of the time, but just make sure your subject is acquired before you press the record button, if that's possible. Bottom line here is the Sigma 24 gets a 9 out of 10 for autofocus speed and accuracy. Next up is optical quality and the quality of the results. Per the usual, the Sigma has robust build and fast, accurate autofocus on the Sony a7s, with some occasional initial acquisition issues with video autofocus. But when focus hits, which fortunately is the majority of the time, the Sigma triumphs. It took me personally a long time to get used to wide-angle lenses like this on human subjects. It's ironic because I shoot wide-angle all the time in my real estate photography, but shooting a whole scene is very different than shooting an environmental portrait. It's something that I've only really got comfortable with in just the last couple of years. It started with a 35mm lens, but I'm getting more and more used to utilizing, or more comfortable utilizing, a 24. And when you get close to your subject, the 24 has the ability to melt the background with its f1.4 aperture. And with wider scenes, the center sharpness are just amazing, even at f1.4. And stopping down to f2, the Sigma cuts like a razor. As advertised, chromatic aberrations are very well controlled, as is flare performance. Now, vignetting, on the other hand, especially at f1.4, is strong and really noticeable. Fortunately, it's only a click away from repair in programs like Lightroom. Now, as with all my reviews, don't take my word for it, see for yourself. The next 1 to 2 minutes will be a series of stills and video clips captured with the Sigma 24mm f1.4 Art Series lens. And I think you'll agree that Sigma has done it again. Last up is value. For starters, considering what it is, a 24mm f1.4 lens designed for full-frame cameras, then a list price of $849 is by no means cheap, but it is relatively inexpensive when compared to the likes of the Sony 24mm f1.4 G Master, $1,398. And for you DSLR shooters, it's a bargain when compared to Nikon's 24, which is just shy of $1,800, and the Canon 24, which comes in at $1,549. Now, to be clear, all the first-party options certainly have their advantages. Notably, all 3 are lighter than the Sigma, with the Sony being the lightest of the bunch. All 3 focus just a little bit faster than the Sigma, and all 3 have arguably better image quality at f1.4. But in my opinion, these are not the kinds of differences that most non-photographers will notice, nor will they care about. The Sigma, to be clear, is sharp at f1.4 in the center of the frame. Now, it's not razor sharp, but it's way more than acceptable. Chromatic aberrations are well controlled, as is distortion. Vignetting, on the other hand, is a bit of a problem, but again, fixing that is just a click away in Lightroom. The bottom line is at $849 and often on sale for up to $200 less than that. There's certainly a lot here for the money. And speaking for myself, I'd most likely buy the Sigma over the first-party offerings from any of the big three. So for value, the Sigma gets a 9.5 out of 10. To wrap up this review, we gave the Sigma 24mm f1.4 Art Series lens a 47 out of 50 and our highly recommended rating. The final word is if we needed further proof that we are living in what I believe to be the golden era of photography, with such a lens can be offered for less than $900 that delivers the kind of optical, aperture, and autofocus performance at a value price like this. Though, as mentioned, the Sigma certainly isn't cheap. In fact, its virtues as a value-oriented lens really aren't apparent until you compare it to its brethren in the industry. That is, the other first-party offerings from the big three of Canon, Nikon, and Sony. The 24 offers solid build, fast autofocus, and beautiful results, which is really all that matters. It's a gem of a lens that's absolutely worthy of your camera bag. Now that said, I do wish it was a little bit lighter and offered something that resembled weather sealing, but you know, you can't have everything. I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, and I'm based here in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. If you like videos like this, go ahead and give me a like, or better yet, subscribe. And until the next time, happy shooting.